Most people believe wealth is about money, but the truth is far more uncomfortable. Wealth is about thinking, and most people never question the way they think about money. They wake up, they work, they pay bills, they repeat the same financial routine year after year, and slowly, without realizing it, they accept a quiet assumption that this is simply how life works. Work hard, earn money, spend money, hope things improve. But every once in a while, someone notices something strange. They look around and see people who seem to play by completely different rules. People who don't appear to work harder, yet accumulate far more wealth. People who recover quickly from financial setbacks. People who invest, build, and multiply money, while others struggle to keep it, and eventually the question appears, a dangerous question. Why do some people remain stuck financially, while others rise again and again? This audiobook exists because of that question. Welcome to the Wealth Formula. This is not simply a conversation about money. It is a conversation about mindsets, systems, and invisible patterns that shape financial destinies. Because wealth is rarely created by accident. It is created by understanding how the world actually works. Over the next chapters, we will explore something most people never learn in school. Why income alone does not create wealth. Why some habits silently destroy financial progress. Why ownership changes everything. And why the difference between being broke and becoming unstoppable often begins with one simple transformation: the way you think. But before we talk about investments, before we talk about assets, before we talk about systems, we must begin with something deeper. Because wealth is not built in bank accounts. It is built in the mind. And the first step toward understanding the wealth formula is recognizing something that may feel uncomfortable. The biggest divide in the financial world is not income. It is perspective. Two people can live in the same city, work in the same industry, earn similar salaries, and end up with completely different futures. Why? Because they see money differently. One person sees money as something to spend. Another sees money as something to multiply. One person thinks about survival. The other thinks about systems. One focuses on earning. The other focuses on building. These differences may sound subtle, but over time they create enormous consequences, because wealth does not grow through random effort. It grows through intentional decisions repeated consistently. Now imagine two paths. The first path is the one most people follow automatically. Work hard, earn a salary, increase lifestyle as income increases, hope savings accumulate. The second path looks different. Work, but also invest, build assets, create systems, multiply income streams. The first path depends on effort forever. The second path gradually replaces effort with leverage, and leverage changes everything. But most people never explore the second path, not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack opportunity, but because they were never taught the rules of ownership, the rules of leverage, the rules of compounding. And once you understand these rules, something powerful happens. You begin seeing the financial world differently. You stop asking, how can I make more money this month? And start asking, how can I build something that multiplies money for decades? That single question is the beginning of the wealth formula. But before we explore the strategies of wealth, we must confront something deeper. Because financial success is rarely limited by knowledge alone. It is often limited by something invisible, something powerful, something many people carry without realizing it, a mindset built around scarcity. And understanding that mindset may be the most important step toward escaping it. Because the difference between those who remain stuck financially and those who build extraordinary wealth often begins with how they interpret opportunity, risk, and time. That is where our journey truly begins. In the next chapter, we will explore the psychological foundation of wealth, why some people think in terms of limitations while others think in terms of possibilities. Because the real divide between rich and poor is not the size of a bank account. It is the structure of a mindset. And once that structure changes, everything else begins changing with it. If you appreciate our efforts and our thoughts, subscribe and like this video. We need to show the world that there are many people like us. We must always continue to improve. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Poverty. Before money ever enters your bank account, before investments are made, before opportunities appear, something else determines your financial direction, your mental framework, not intelligence, not talent, not even education, but the invisible beliefs you carry about money. Because every financial decision you make is filtered through one powerful lens: what you believe is possible. And this is where the real divide begins, not between rich and poor, but between scarcity thinking and expansion thinking. Scarcity thinking whispers quiet limitations into the mind. It says, be careful, don't risk it. That's not for people like you. Maybe someday, when things are safer. These thoughts sound logical, responsible, even wise, but often they hide something deeper. Fear. Fear of losing, fear of failing, fear of stepping outside familiar patterns. Now let's be clear, caution itself is not the enemy. Every successful investor understands risk. Every entrepreneur understands uncertainty. But there is a difference between managing risk and avoiding growth entirely. Scarcity thinking tends to avoid growth. It clings tightly to security. And that security often becomes a cage, because the safest financial decision in the short term is rarely the most powerful decision in the long term. Think about how most people approach money. They focus on protection, protect savings, protect comfort, protect stability. But those protections often come with a hidden cost. They prevent exploration. They prevent experimentation. They prevent the learning process that builds financial intelligence. Meanwhile, people who build wealth often operate with a different internal dialogue. They do not ask only, what could go wrong? They also ask, what could go right? And more importantly, what could I learn? This shift may seem small, but it transforms everything. Because when fear dominates thinking, action disappears. And when action disappears, opportunity disappears with it. Now imagine two individuals facing the same opportunity. The first person sees potential risk. They hesitate. They analyze endlessly. They wait for certainty. The second person also sees risk, but instead of waiting for perfect conditions, they ask a different question. How can I reduce the risk while still moving forward? This question leads to learning, research, mentorship, strategy, and eventually, action. And action creates experience. Experience creates wisdom. Wisdom creates confidence. Confidence creates momentum. This is how financial growth begins, not with perfect decisions, but with progressive learning. The psychology of poverty interrupts that process. It convinces people that mistakes are unacceptable, that risk equals danger, that failure means personal inadequacy. But the truth is something entirely different. Every successful wealth builder has failed repeatedly. Businesses collapse, investments decline, ideas fail, markets change. Yet those who ultimately succeed treat failure differently. They treat it as information. Information that improves the next decision. Information that strengthens the next strategy. Information that sharpens the next opportunity. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is the training ground for it. But scarcity thinking rarely allows people to reach that training ground. It stops them before the journey begins. And this creates a cycle that quietly reinforces financial struggle. If you never invest, you never learn how investing works. If you never build, you never learn how systems operate. If you never experiment, you never discover leverage. So the same pattern repeats. Work harder, earn more, spend more, start again. And because the cycle feels normal, it rarely gets questioned. But something interesting happens when a person breaks that cycle. When they start learning about assets, when they start studying investments, when they start building small systems of income, they realize something powerful. Money behaves differently depending on how you use it. For many people, money passes through their hands like water, earned, spent, gone. But for others, money becomes a seed, planted, protected, grown. That difference defines the beginning of wealth. But understanding money requires something many people never consider: a shift in how they view time. Because money alone does not create wealth. Time combined with the right decisions does. And the relationship between time and money may be the most misunderstood concept in the entire financial world. In the next chapter, we explore that relationship. Why the wealthy think in decades while most people think in paychecks. Why time multiplies wealth for some and slowly drains opportunity from others. And why mastering the relationship between time and money may be the most powerful step toward financial freedom. Because once you understand how time truly works in the wealth formula, you stop asking how to get rich quickly and start asking how to build something that grows forever. Dear viewer, please write in the comments what interested you most in the video. This will help us improve our videos. Chapter 3, The Great Divider. Time. There is a silent force shaping every financial future. It does not appear on bank statements. It does not show up on tax forms. Most people barely notice it. Yet it determines who builds wealth and who remains trapped in financial survival. That force is time, not the hours you work, but the way you think about time. Because there are two very different ways people measure it. The first way is how most of the world operates. They measure time in hours and paychecks. How much do I earn per hour? How many hours do I need to work this week? How long until my next paycheck? Their relationship with money is directly tied to the time they personally spend working. And as long as that relationship exists, their income has a natural ceiling. 24 hours in a day, 7 days in a week. There's only so much time one person can trade, but the people who build extraordinary wealth approach time differently. They measure time in decades and multiplication. They ask questions most people never consider. What can this hour create 10 years from now? How can this effort keep producing value long after today? How can I turn time into something that works for me? This is the moment the wealth formula begins to reveal itself. Because the rich do not simply earn money. They design systems that outlive their effort. Businesses, investments, intellectual property. assets that continue producing value whether the owner is present or not. This is why time behaves differently for different people. For some, time disappears the moment a paycheck arrives. For others, time becomes a multiplier. Imagine planting a small seed in the ground. At first, nothing seems to happen. Days pass, weeks pass. The soil looks unchanged, but beneath the surface, something invisible is forming. Roots, structure, strength. Eventually the plant appears, then it grows, then it spreads. That is exactly how wealth behaves. In the early stages, the progress feels slow. Investments grow gradually. Skills develop quietly. Systems require patience. But over time, something extraordinary happens. Growth accelerates. Compounding begins. And the same effort that once produced small results suddenly begins producing much larger outcomes. This is why wealthy thinkers are comfortable with long-time horizons. They understand something most people underestimate. Time magnifies intelligent decisions, but it also magnifies poor ones. If someone spends 10 years consuming everything they earn, the result compounds into deeper financial dependence. If someone spends 10 years investing consistently, the result compounds into financial strength. The actions may appear small day to day, but time transforms them into powerful outcomes. Now consider something that may feel uncomfortable. Most people are not actually limited by income. They are limited by how they deploy time and money together. Two individuals can earn identical salaries, yet 10 years later, their financial realities look completely different. One saved little and spent most. The other invested small amounts consistently. The difference was not income. The difference was time strategy. But the wealth formula contains another layer that many people never notice. Because it is not just about time. It is about ownership. The wealthy do not simply sell their time. They own things that continue producing value. Shares in companies, real estate, businesses, ideas turned into products, intellectual property. Ownership transforms the relationship between time and money. Instead of earning once, value can be earned repeatedly. Instead of working harder every year, systems grow stronger every year. This is why many wealthy individuals spend years building assets that appear modest at first, because they understand something most people overlook. Small assets today can become enormous assets tomorrow if time is allowed to compound them. But there is a psychological challenge hidden inside this process, because compounding requires patience, and patience is difficult in a world built on instant gratification. Modern culture encourages speed, fast success, quick rewards, immediate results. But wealth rarely obeys that timeline. It follows a slower rhythm, a rhythm that rewards discipline more than excitement. Think about the most powerful force in finance: compounding. Compounding is quiet, gradual, almost invisible at first, but over time it becomes unstoppable. A small investment grows into something meaningful. Then something meaningful grows into something extraordinary. And the longer it continues, the more powerful it becomes. This is why people who understand the wealth formula focus on long-term positioning rather than short-term excitement. They are not trying to win today. They are designing systems that win repeatedly over decades. And that mindset changes everything. Because once you begin thinking in decades instead of paychecks, your decisions evolve. Spending becomes more intentional. Investing becomes more strategic. Time becomes more valuable. And gradually, something powerful begins to happen. Instead of chasing money constantly, you begin building structures that attract it. But there is another force that quietly influences wealth, a force that can accelerate financial growth or quietly destroy it. Emotion, because money, despite being built on numbers, is often controlled by feelings, fear, greed, ego. These emotions influence decisions more than people realize, and learning to control them may be one of the most important skills in the entire wealth formula. Because the greatest investors are not simply intelligent, they are emotionally disciplined. And in the next chapter, we explore why emotional mastery separates those who build wealth from those who lose it. Because in the world of money, the biggest enemy is rarely the market. It is the mind, reacting to it. Chapter 4. Emotion, the invisible force behind every dollar. Most people believe money decisions are logical. They imagine spreadsheets, numbers, calculations. But in reality, money is deeply emotional. Fear influences it. Ego influences it. Envy influences it. Pride influences it. And if you observe financial history carefully, you begin to notice something fascinating. Entire fortunes have been created and destroyed because of emotion. Markets rise because people become optimistic. Markets crash because people become afraid. Assets soar because people chase excitement. Assets collapse because people panic. But the difference between wealthy thinkers and financially struggling thinkers is not that one group experiences emotions and the other does not. Everyone feels fear. Everyone feels uncertainty. Everyone feels doubt. The difference is who controls the decision, the emotion or the person. Imagine two investors watching the same market crash. The first person sees their investment falling and reacts immediately. They panic, they sell, they escape the discomfort, and the moment they sell, the loss becomes permanent. The second person experiences the same fear, the same uncertainty, but they pause, they analyze, they remember that markets move in cycles. Instead of reacting emotionally, they ask a different question. Is this chaos or is this opportunity? That question alone can separate financial collapse from financial growth. Because historically, the greatest fortunes have often been built during moments of fear. When others panic, assets become cheaper. When others hesitate, opportunities become available. But only people with emotional discipline can take advantage of those moments. The rest are too busy escaping the discomfort. Now consider something important. Emotional reactions do not only appear during crises, they appear during success too. Success can trigger greed, and greed is just as dangerous as fear. When people experience early financial wins, something subtle can happen. They begin believing they are smarter than the system. They begin increasing risk without increasing understanding. They begin chasing bigger returns without asking deeper questions. And eventually, the same emotion that created excitement becomes the cause of collapse. This is why emotional mastery sits at the center of the wealth formula, because financial success is not simply about finding good opportunities. It is about managing yourself while navigating those opportunities. The richest investors in history understood this truth deeply. They did not rely only on intelligence. They relied on discipline. They built rules around their decisions, rules that protected them from emotional impulses, rules that forced patience, rules that forced rational thinking, rules that kept them grounded when excitement appeared, and calm when fear dominated the environment. Now imagine your financial future as a ship crossing a massive ocean. The markets are the waves. Opportunities are the winds. Economic conditions are the weather. You cannot control those forces, but you can control the captain of the ship, your mind. If the captain panics every time waves appear, the journey becomes chaotic. If the captain remains calm and navigates strategically, the ship reaches powerful destinations. This is the hidden advantage of emotional discipline. It allows someone to see clearly when others cannot. But emotional mastery is not something people are born with. It is something they train. Just like muscles, just like skills, just like habits. Many wealthy individuals practice routines that strengthen emotional stability. They read daily. They reflect. They journal. They study history. They analyze past mistakes, not because they are obsessed with productivity, but because they understand the cost of emotional chaos. A distracted mind makes expensive decisions. A reactive mind destroys long-term strategies. But a calm mind, a focused mind, a disciplined mind can navigate almost any financial environment. And here is the most powerful part. Emotional discipline does not just improve investments. It improves every area of life: relationships, business decisions, leadership, personal growth. Because someone who can control their emotions in stressful environments becomes extremely valuable. People trust them. People respect them. People collaborate with them. And collaboration opens another powerful doorway in the wealth formula. Because wealth is rarely built alone. It grows through networks, partnerships, and collective intelligence. The richest individuals on earth are rarely isolated geniuses. They are connected builders, strategists, collaborators, people who understand the power of relationships. And that is exactly where our journey continues. Because the next chapter explores one of the most underestimated forces in financial success: your network. Not just who you know, but who you grow with. Because sometimes one conversation can change a financial future. One partnership can create an empire. And one relationship can accelerate progress faster than years of isolated effort. The wealth formula is not only about money, it is about people. And once you understand how powerful the right connections can be, you begin seeing opportunity in places you never noticed before. Chapter 5. Your network is a hidden asset. Most people believe wealth is built through effort. Work harder, push longer, compete harder than everyone else. And effort absolutely matters. But there is something even more powerful than effort: connection. Because wealth rarely grows in isolation. It grows through networks. Think about the most successful builders in the world: entrepreneurs, investors, innovators. Rarely do they operate alone. Behind every powerful venture is usually a web of relationships: mentors, partners, advisors, collaborators, each person bringing a different skill, perspective, or opportunity. And when those perspectives combine, something extraordinary happens. Ideas evolve faster. Mistakes get caught earlier. Opportunities multiply. This is why the saying exists: your network is your net worth. But that phrase is often misunderstood. It's not about collecting contacts. It's not about superficial connections. It's about building meaningful relationships with people who are also building, people who challenge your thinking, people who expand your perspective, people who introduce you to new ideas and opportunities. Because the right environment changes everything. Imagine two individuals with identical ambition. One surrounds themselves with people who constantly complain about money, who view risk as danger, who believe wealth is impossible. The other surrounds themselves with people who study markets, who discuss investments, who build businesses, who share lessons learned from experience. Over time, their thinking evolves differently. Their conversations evolve differently. Their decisions evolve differently. And eventually, their financial futures evolve differently. Because human beings are deeply influenced by their environment. The ideas we hear repeatedly begin shaping our beliefs. The behaviors we see repeatedly begin shaping our habits. And the ambitions of those around us begin shaping our expectations. Now consider something fascinating. Many wealthy individuals intentionally place themselves in environments where opportunity circulates constantly. Business communities, investment circles, professional networks. Why? Because ideas move through these environments. Information travels quickly. Opportunities appear faster. And collaboration becomes natural. But the real power of networks goes even deeper. Because the right relationship can accelerate growth dramatically. A mentor can help you avoid mistakes that would take years to learn alone. A partner can bring skills you don't possess. A connection can introduce you to opportunities you would never discover independently. This is why wealthy thinkers rarely ask, "What can I accomplish alone?" Instead, they ask, "What can we build together?" Collaboration multiplies capacity. It multiplies creativity. It multiplies execution. But building powerful networks requires something important: value. Relationships built purely on self-interest rarely last, but relationships built on contribution become powerful over time. When you help others succeed, when you share knowledge, when you offer support, something powerful happens. Trust forms, and trust is one of the most valuable currencies in the world. Because people prefer working with individuals they trust, they share opportunities with them, they invest with them, they collaborate with them, and these collaborations often lead to outcomes far beyond what any single person could achieve alone. Now imagine looking back 10 years from today. Which would matter more? 10 years of isolated effort, or 10 years of growth surrounded by people who challenge and expand your thinking? Because wealth is rarely built by lone wolves. It is built by connected minds. But even strong networks cannot create wealth without something deeper: a framework, a system, a way of thinking about money that turns ideas into structured growth. Because the truth is this: even brilliant people fail financially if they lack the right systems. And even ordinary individuals can build extraordinary wealth if they understand how systems work. This is where the wealth formula becomes even more powerful. Because in the next chapter, we uncover something many people overlook: why systems, not effort, build empires, why hard work alone rarely creates financial freedom, and why the wealthiest individuals in history spend far more time designing systems than performing tasks. Because once a system works, it works even when you're not there. And that is the beginning of real financial leverage. Mate, write which city you're from. It's interesting to see which corners of the world are watching our videos. Chapter 6. Systems. The engine behind wealth. Hard work is respected. Effort is praised. Society celebrates the image of someone grinding day and night to achieve success. And yes, effort has value. But effort alone rarely builds lasting wealth. Because effort has a limit. There are only so many hours in a day, only so much energy in a body, only so much time one person can trade for income. This is why many hard-working individuals remain financially stuck. They increase effort, but effort does not multiply. It only stretches, and eventually it breaks. Now compare that with a system. A system does something remarkable. It multiplies effort. Imagine building something once that continues producing results repeatedly. A business that sells while you sleep. An investment that grows while you travel. An idea that becomes a product serving thousands. This is the power of systems. They transform work into leverage. And leverage is the hidden engine behind nearly every large fortune in history. Consider the difference between two people. The first person works harder every year, more hours, more stress, more exhaustion. Income increases, but only slightly, because their income is directly tied to their personal effort. The second person builds a system. At first, it requires time, learning, experimentation. But eventually, the system stabilizes. Now results begin appearing with less direct effort. The system operates. The system grows. The system scales. This is the shift from working harder to working strategically. And the wealthiest individuals in history understand this deeply. They are not obsessed with doing more tasks. They are obsessed with building structures that perform tasks automatically. Businesses are systems. Investments are systems. Digital platforms are systems. Even personal brands can become systems of influence and value creation. Once a system functions effectively, it creates something extraordinary. Scale. Scale means reaching thousands or millions without increasing effort proportionally. Think about it. A teacher in a classroom might reach 30 students. A teacher who creates an online course could reach hundreds of thousands. Same knowledge, different system. Scale multiplies impact. And when impact multiplies, wealth follows. But systems require something many people struggle with: patience. Because the early stages feel slow. You invest time. You refine ideas. You improve processes, often without immediate rewards. This is where many people quit. They assume the effort is wasted. But the truth is something else entirely. The foundation is being built. Every strong system begins quietly. Invisible progress, trial and error, learning and adjusting. Then one day the structure stabilizes and results accelerate. The system starts working. Now imagine multiple systems. One investment producing returns, another business generating cash flow, another asset appreciating in value. Each system working simultaneously. This is why wealthy individuals rarely depend on a single source of income. They build multiple systems of value, each one strengthening financial resilience. If one slows down, others continue producing results. This diversification creates stability, and stability creates freedom, because dependence on a single income source creates fragility. One job loss, one market shift, one unexpected event, and financial stress appears instantly. But diversified systems create protection. They create options. They create breathing room. And that breathing room changes the psychology of money. When survival pressure disappears, creativity increases. When fear disappears, opportunity becomes easier to see. But systems alone are not enough, because systems require something deeper to function effectively: knowledge, understanding, financial intelligence. The world of money operates on rules. Rules most people were never taught. Rules about assets, rules about leverage, rules about taxes, rules about ownership. Those who learn these rules gain enormous advantages. Those who ignore them remain stuck in cycles of effort. Which leads us to the next layer of the wealth formula: financial education. Because money rewards understanding, and ignorance of financial systems can quietly cost people decades of progress. In the next chapter, we explore one of the most powerful transformations anyone can make: learning how money actually works. Not the myths, not the outdated advice, but the real mechanics behind wealth creation. Because once you understand those mechanics, money stops feeling confusing and starts becoming a tool you can control. Chapter 7. Financial Education, the Knowledge Gap. There is something strange about the modern world. We spend years in school learning mathematics, literature, science, and history. We learn formulas. We memorize facts. We prepare for exams. But when it comes to one of the most important skills in adult life, understanding money, most people receive almost no formal education. No lessons on investing, no lessons on cash flow, no lessons on assets and liabilities, no lessons on how wealth is actually created. And because of that absence, millions of people walk into adulthood with an invisible disadvantage. They work hard. They try their best. But they are navigating the financial world without a map. Meanwhile, the people who build wealth study money the way engineers study physics. They study systems. They study incentives. They study opportunity. And that difference in education creates enormous consequences over time because money follows understanding. Now, imagine two individuals starting their careers, both intelligent, both hardworking, both ambitious. The first person focuses entirely on earning. How can I get promoted? How can I increase my salary? How can I work more hours? The second person focuses on learning how money moves, how do assets work, how do businesses scale, how does compounding transform small investments into large ones. One focuses on income, the other focuses on financial literacy. 10 years later, their lives look dramatically different. The first person may earn a good salary, but they remain dependent on it. The second person may earn a similar salary, but they have also built investments, assets, and systems. And those systems begin generating income on their own. This difference does not appear overnight. It appears slowly, gradually, but once it begins compounding, it becomes extremely powerful. Now here is the fascinating part. Financial education is not about memorizing complex formulas. It is about understanding a few core principles deeply. Principle 1, assets versus liabilities. An asset is something that puts money into your life. A liability is something that pulls money out. Many people confuse the two. They purchase things that appear valuable, but quietly drain financial resources over time. True wealth builders ask a simple question before making financial decisions. Will this move money toward me or away from me? Principle 2, cash flow. Cash flow is the heartbeat of financial stability. It is not enough to own something valuable. What matters is whether it produces consistent income. Many investments rise and fall in value, but assets that produce steady cash flow create stability, and stability creates freedom. Principle 3, leverage. Leverage means using resources beyond your own effort to create results. Technology is leverage. Capital is leverage. Teams are leverage. The more leverage someone understands, the less their success depends on personal labor. Principle 4, compounding. Compounding is the quiet miracle of finance. Small gains repeated consistently over time become extraordinary results, but compounding requires patience, and patience is rare in a world obsessed with instant rewards. Now here is the uncomfortable truth. Many people avoid financial education because they believe it is complicated. But complexity is not the real obstacle. The real obstacle is attention. Financial knowledge requires curiosity, reading, learning, observation, And in a world full of distractions, curiosity often gets replaced by consumption. Endless scrolling, endless entertainment, endless noise. Meanwhile, those who study quietly gain advantages others never notice, because information compounds just like money does. The more you understand about economics, markets, and systems, the more opportunities become visible. What once looked confusing begins to look predictable. What once looked risky begins to look manageable. And gradually, confidence replaces uncertainty. This is why many wealthy individuals remain lifelong students. They read constantly. They study markets. They observe trends, because the financial world is always evolving. New technologies appear. New industries emerge. New opportunities form. And those who remain curious position themselves to benefit from change. But there is one more lesson hidden inside financial education, a lesson that separates those who accumulate wealth from those who merely earn money. Ownership. Because knowledge alone does not create wealth. Ownership does. Owning shares in companies, owning real estate, owning intellectual property, owning systems that produce value. Ownership transforms knowledge into results. And that transformation is the core of the wealth formula. But ownership requires something many people hesitate to use: debt. For many, the word debt carries fear, danger, stress. And while reckless debt can absolutely destroy financial stability, there is another side of debt that many people never learn. Because in the hands of those who understand it, debt can become a powerful tool. In the next chapter, we explore one of the most misunderstood forces in the financial world: how debt, when used intelligently, can accelerate wealth instead of destroying it, and why understanding the difference between productive debt and destructive debt may completely change how you view money. Because tools are never good or bad by themselves. Their impact depends entirely on how they are used. Chapter 8. Debt. The tool most people misunderstand. There are few words in the financial world that trigger stronger reactions than this one: debt. For many people, debt represents stress. Bills piling up, interest accumulating, financial pressure that feels impossible to escape. And for good reason. Used carelessly, debt can destroy lives. Credit card debt, consumer loans, endless borrowing to finance temporary pleasures. These forms of debt often trap people in cycles of repayment that feel endless. But the story of debt is more complicated than most people realize. Because in the world of wealth, debt plays a completely different role. The key difference lies in how it is used. There are two very different types of debt. One type consumes wealth. The other type creates it. Most people are only familiar with the first. Consumer debt. Buying things that lose value the moment they are purchased. Cars that depreciate. Gadgets that become outdated. Luxuries that provide temporary satisfaction but long-term financial burden. This kind of debt drains financial energy. Every payment removes money from your future. But there is another category: productive debt. Debt used to acquire assets. Assets that generate income. Assets that grow in value. Assets that produce more money than the debt costs. This is the type of debt many wealthy individuals learn to use strategically. Imagine borrowing money to buy something that pays you back: a rental property producing monthly income, a business generating profit, an investment that appreciates over time. In these situations, debt becomes a lever, and leverage amplifies financial outcomes. Now imagine two people again. One uses debt to consume. The other uses debt to create. Over time, their financial trajectories look completely different. The first becomes buried in payments. The second gradually accumulates assets. Same tool, different strategy, but here's something important. Using debt effectively requires financial discipline and knowledge. Without those, leverage becomes dangerous, because leverage magnifies outcomes in both directions. A wise investment can grow quickly with leverage. A poor decision can collapse even faster. This is why successful investors rarely jump blindly into opportunities. They study numbers carefully: cash flow, risk, market conditions. They ask one crucial question: will this asset pay for itself? If the answer is yes, leverage can accelerate growth. If the answer is no, they walk away. And walking away is often the smartest financial decision, because discipline is more valuable than excitement. Now, there is another layer to the conversation about debt, one that many people never explore: the relationship between debt and inflation. Inflation slowly reduces the purchasing power of money. What costs $1 today may cost $2 in the future. For savers, inflation quietly erodes stored wealth. But for borrowers using debt to acquire appreciating assets, inflation can work in their favor. Imagine borrowing money today to purchase an asset that increases in value while inflation gradually reduces the real cost of that borrowed money. Over time, the asset grows, while the debt becomes relatively smaller. This dynamic has shaped many powerful wealth-building strategies throughout history. But again, it requires knowledge and careful planning. Not speculation, not gambling. Strategy. Because the wealth formula is not built on reckless risk. It is built on calculated decisions repeated consistently. Now, here is a critical insight. Debt alone does not create wealth. Assets create wealth. Debt simply accelerates the acquisition of those assets when used responsibly. And this is why financial education matters so much. Without understanding assets, leverage becomes dangerous. With understanding, leverage becomes powerful. But there is another invisible force quietly shaping wealth, a force that most people notice only when it reduces their income. Taxes. Taxes are often viewed as unavoidable burdens. And for many individuals working traditional jobs, they are exactly that. But for those who understand financial systems, taxes become something else entirely, a strategic consideration, because the financial system often rewards certain types of economic activity: investment, ownership, business creation, innovation. And those rewards frequently appear in the form of tax advantages. In the next chapter, we explore how understanding taxes can transform financial outcomes, why employees and owners often experience completely different financial realities, and why the tax system is less about punishment and more about incentives. Because once you understand what the system rewards, you can begin positioning yourself where the rewards already exist. And that knowledge can dramatically accelerate the wealth formula. Dear viewer, share your success story, even if it is small. It can motivate other people to visit the comment section and read it, and it can inspire them. Also, don't be shy about asking questions, and perhaps someone with more experience or someone who has been through this will share the answer. Remember, it is only through communication that people become stronger and better. Thank you. Chapter 9. Taxes, the rules most people never study. For many people, taxes feel like an unavoidable burden. Every year, income arrives, and a portion of it disappears. Sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully, and most people accept this process as something they cannot influence. They assume taxes are simply the price of living in society. But the truth is more nuanced than that. Taxes are not only about collecting money, they are also about guiding behavior. Governments design tax systems to encourage certain activities: building businesses, creating jobs, developing housing, investing in infrastructure, innovating new industries. When individuals contribute to these activities, the system often rewards them with tax advantages. But here is where the divide appears. Many people never study how these incentives work. They focus entirely on earning income, and income earned through labor is usually taxed the most heavily. Meanwhile, people who understand financial systems learn to operate differently. They build companies. They invest in assets. They structure ownership in ways that align with the incentives built into the system. This does not mean avoiding taxes illegally. It means understanding the rules. And once you understand the rules, you begin making different decisions. For example, many wealthy individuals focus heavily on ownership structures, companies, investment vehicles, partnerships. These structures are not just administrative details. They change how money flows. They change how income is categorized. They change how taxes apply. Now, imagine two individuals again. One works entirely as an employee. Every dollar they earn is taxed directly. The second person builds a business. Their income may come through dividends, ownership shares, or investment returns. The tax treatment of these categories often differs dramatically, and over time, that difference compounds. But understanding taxes is not about becoming an accountant. It is about recognizing incentives. Where does the system reward activity? What behaviors does it encourage? Once you identify those incentives, opportunities become clearer. This is why many investors focus on industries where governments offer advantages: real estate, energy development, innovation sectors. These fields often receive tax incentives because they contribute to economic growth. But taxes reveal another deeper principle of the wealth formula: the difference between consumers and creators. Consumers participate in the economy primarily through spending. Creators participate through building products, building services, building systems that generate value for others. And the economy rewards those who create value because creation multiplies opportunity. Now, here is something powerful. You do not need to become a massive entrepreneur to benefit from this principle. Ownership can take many forms: owning shares of businesses, owning real estate, owning intellectual property, owning investments that participate in economic growth. The key is moving from pure consumption toward partial ownership. Even small ownership stakes compound over time, and when combined with financial education, systems, and networks, ownership becomes a powerful engine of wealth. But there is another shift that occurs when someone begins thinking like an owner instead of a worker. Their focus changes. They stop asking, "How much can I earn?" and start asking, "How much value can I create?" Because value creation is the foundation of every fortune. Money is simply the reflection of value delivered to the world. Solve meaningful problems, create meaningful products, serve meaningful needs, and money follows naturally. But people who focus only on income often miss this deeper truth. They chase money directly instead of building the things that attract it. And that shift in perspective changes everything. Because once you begin focusing on value, something remarkable happens. You begin seeing opportunity everywhere. Problems become possibilities. Ideas become experiments. Experiments become systems. Systems become assets. And those assets eventually become wealth. But even value creation requires something else to grow, information, because the modern world moves faster than ever. Technology evolves, markets shift, entire industries appear and disappear within decades. Those who stay curious, those who keep learning, those who adapt, gain enormous advantages, which leads us to the next piece of the wealth formula: information. Not just information in general, but the right information, the kind that reveals trends before they become obvious, the kind that helps you see opportunities others overlook. Because in the modern economy, knowledge is no longer just power. It is leverage. And the people who know where to look for it often build fortunes long before the rest of the world realizes what is happening. That is where our journey continues next. Chapter 10. Information. The new currency. There was a time when land determined wealth. Whoever owned the most land controlled resources, food, and power. Then came the industrial age. Factories, machines, production lines. Wealth shifted toward those who controlled industry. But today, something else dominates the financial landscape. Information, not just access to it. Everyone has access now. The internet has placed more knowledge in a smartphone than entire libraries once contained. But the difference between those who build wealth and those who struggle is not access. It is how information is used. Some people consume information endlessly. News feeds, social media, endless streams of opinions. But consumption alone rarely changes a financial future. Wealth builders treat information differently. They curate it, they filter it, they study patterns, they search for signals hidden inside noise. Because information becomes powerful only when it leads to insight, and insight leads to action. Imagine two individuals scrolling through the same headlines. One sees entertainment, the other sees trends. A new technology emerges. One person says, "Interesting." The other asks, "What industries will this disrupt?" A market fluctuation appears. One person says, "That's confusing." The other asks, "What opportunity might this create?" The same information, two completely different responses, and that difference compounds over time. Because curiosity leads to discovery. Discovery leads to opportunity. Opportunity leads to wealth. This is why many successful investors treat learning as a lifelong habit. They read constantly, books, research, economic analysis, not because they enjoy complexity, but because they understand something critical. The more perspectives you absorb, the clearer patterns become, and patterns reveal where the world is moving next. Now, consider the pace of modern change. Entire industries have emerged in just a few decades. The internet, digital media, artificial intelligence, e-commerce, cryptocurrency. Every technological shift creates enormous economic waves. Some people watch these waves pass by. Others learn to surf them. The difference lies in attention. Where you place your attention determines what opportunities you see. And attention is one of the most valuable resources you possess, because attention directs learning. Learning directs action, and action creates outcomes. But attention is constantly under attack. Notifications, entertainment, endless streams of content designed to capture your focus. The modern world is engineered to distract you because attention is profitable. Every minute you spend consuming content generates revenue for someone else. But every minute you spend learning, building, or creating value generates potential wealth for yourself. And this is one of the most powerful realizations in the wealth formula. Your attention is not just a mental resource. It is an economic resource. Where you direct it determines the trajectory of your future. Imagine investing 1 hour per day in learning about investments, 1 hour studying industries, 1 hour exploring ideas. Over the course of a year, that becomes more than 300 hours of focused education, 300 hours of insight, 300 hours of opportunity discovery. Now imagine the compounding effect of that learning over 10 years. You would possess thousands of hours of financial understanding, thousands of hours of pattern recognition, thousands of hours of strategic thinking. That knowledge becomes leverage, because knowledge reduces uncertainty, and reduced uncertainty increases confidence. Confidence allows you to move when others hesitate, but information alone is not enough. There is another step that transforms knowledge into wealth: application, because ideas have no value until they are applied. Reading about investments does nothing. Studying markets does nothing. Learning strategies does nothing until action appears. Action creates experience. Experience refines judgment. Judgment improves decision-making. And better decisions create better outcomes. This is the cycle of financial growth: learning, applying, adjusting, improving, repeating. And over time, this cycle transforms uncertainty into mastery. But there is another mindset shift that must occur before the wealth formula fully activates: a shift from reaction to design. Most people react to financial circumstances, unexpected expenses, market changes, economic pressures. But wealth builders design their financial future intentionally. They create plans. They build systems. They position themselves where opportunities are likely to appear. This shift from reacting to designing may be one of the most powerful transformations anyone can make. Because when you design your financial life, you stop feeling like a passenger and start becoming the architect. But architecture requires something deeper than knowledge. It requires a clear internal framework, a set of beliefs that guide decisions consistently. And that framework begins with something invisible: your mindset operating system. In the next chapter, we explore how mental programming shapes financial outcomes, why two people with identical knowledge can still achieve completely different results, and how rewriting your internal beliefs about money may unlock possibilities you never imagined. Because before wealth appears in your life, it must first appear in your thinking. Chapter 11. The Mindset Operating System. Imagine that every human mind runs on invisible software, an internal operating system, a set of beliefs and assumptions that quietly guide every decision you make. Most people never notice it. They simply live inside it. But this internal operating system determines something powerful: how you react to opportunity, how you respond to failure, how you interpret money, risk, and success. And the truth is this: two people can receive the exact same opportunity and produce completely different outcomes. Not because one is smarter, not because one is luckier, but because their internal operating systems process reality differently. One person sees obstacles, the other sees possibilities. One sees danger, the other sees potential. One sees limits, the other sees leverage. This invisible difference is the foundation of the wealth formula. Because wealth begins long before money appears. It begins in how you interpret the world. Now let's explore something important. Many people operate with what could be called a defensive mindset. Their mental programming focuses on avoiding loss, avoiding embarrassment, avoiding mistakes. Their internal dialogue sounds like this: what if it fails? What if I lose money? What if people judge me? These thoughts feel reasonable, but they quietly keep people in the same place. Because a life built entirely around avoiding risk rarely creates expansion. Now compare that with a growth mindset. This mindset does not ignore risk, but it approaches risk differently. Instead of asking only, what could go wrong? It also asks, what could go right? And more importantly, what can I learn from this? That question transforms failure. Failure stops being something to fear and becomes something to study. Because every failure contains information. Information about what works. Information about what does not. Information about how to improve. And those lessons become stepping stones towards success. Now, here's something fascinating. If you study the lives of wealthy builders, innovators, and entrepreneurs, you notice a pattern. Almost every one of them experienced repeated setbacks, businesses that collapsed, investments that failed, ideas that didn't work. But instead of interpreting these moments as proof of limitation, they treated them as feedback. Feedback that sharpened their strategies. Feedback that strengthened their judgment. Feedback that made their next decision better. And this is where the operating system of wealth truly reveals itself. Wealthy thinkers do not aim to be perfect. They aim to improve continuously. Now imagine two individuals again. Both start a business. Both encounter challenges. The first person experiences difficulty and concludes, I'm not good at this. They stop. The second person experiences difficulty and concludes, what did this teach me? They adjust. They try again. 5 years later, the difference between these two individuals becomes enormous. One stopped learning, the other kept evolving, and evolution compounds. Just like money, just like skills, just like relationships. Now here is the powerful realization. Your mindset operating system is not permanent. It can be rewritten. The beliefs you inherited from childhood, the financial ideas you absorbed from your environment, the fears you developed through experience, none of these are fixed. They are programs, and programs can be updated. The first step is awareness. Notice your internal dialogue. When opportunity appears, what do you tell yourself? Do you say, that's impossible for someone like me? Or do you say, how could I make that possible? Those two sentences lead to completely different futures. The first closes doors. The second opens exploration. And exploration is where opportunity lives. But rewriting your mental operating system requires consistent reinforcement. New information, new environments, new conversations. Because the ideas surrounding you will influence the beliefs inside you. This is why people who build wealth often surround themselves with individuals who think expansively. People who build, people who invest, people who experiment. Because environments shape mindsets, and mindsets shape outcomes. Now, here is the most important insight of this chapter. Wealth is not created by avoiding mistakes. It is created by learning faster than others. Those who learn quickly adapt quickly. Those who adapt quickly move ahead. And those who move ahead begin seeing opportunities others never notice. But mindset alone does not create wealth. It must translate into action. Action guided by strategy. strategy, guided by value. Because money does not appear randomly. It flows toward value. And understanding how value is created may be the most important lesson in the entire wealth formula. That is exactly what we explore next. Because in the next chapter, we uncover a powerful shift. Why the poor chase money, while the rich focus on creating value. And once that shift happens, money often begins appearing in unexpected ways because value is the magnet that attracts wealth. Chapter 12. The Law of Value. Most people spend their lives chasing money. They search for higher salaries. They look for better paying jobs. They work harder, hoping income will finally solve everything. But money has a strange habit. The harder you chase it directly, the more it seems to slip away. And the reason is simple. Money is not the true target. Value is. Money is simply the reward for delivering value to others. Nothing more, nothing less. If you observe the most successful individuals in the world, you will notice a fascinating pattern. They rarely focus primarily on money. They focus on solving problems, creating products, delivering services, improving systems, making life easier, faster, safer, or more enjoyable for others. And when that happens, money follows naturally. Think about the biggest companies on earth. They didn't become massive by chasing money. They became massive by creating solutions. Solutions people wanted, solutions people needed, solutions that improved daily life. Once those solutions existed, money flowed toward them. Now imagine two individuals again. The first asks a simple question every morning. How can I earn more money today? The second asks a different question. How can I create more value today? At first, their actions may look similar. Both work, both earn income. But over time, their trajectories begin to diverge. Because value creation has no ceiling. You can only work so many hours. But you can create value for thousands, even millions. A teacher in one classroom reaches a few students. A teacher who writes a powerful book reaches the world. A consultant advising one company creates limited impact. A consultant who builds a scalable solution influences entire industries. This is why wealthy thinkers focus on impact. Impact multiplies value, and value multiplies income. But there is another dimension to value that many people overlook. Perceived value. Two individuals can perform the same amount of effort, but if one creates results that solve bigger problems, their value increases dramatically. For example, someone who helps one customer save 1 hour has created value, but someone who helps millions of people save time through technology has created exponential value. The effort may not even be dramatically different. The scale is, and scale transforms income into wealth. Now here is an important realization. You do not need to invent the next global technology company to apply this principle. Value can be created in countless ways, helping businesses operate more efficiently, improving communication, designing better systems, teaching skills, solving specific problems that others struggle with. The key is shifting your focus away from money itself and toward problems worth solving. Because every meaningful problem represents opportunity. Where frustration exists, innovation can appear. Where inefficiency exists, systems can improve. Where confusion exists, education can thrive. And those who solve problems consistently become valuable. Now imagine approaching every opportunity with a simple question. What problem can I solve here? Suddenly the world looks different. Complaints become clues. Obstacles become opportunities. Challenges become invitations to innovate. This mindset transforms your relationship with work. Instead of performing tasks, you begin designing solutions. And solutions are the foundation of wealth. But solving problems requires something deeper than effort. It requires creative thinking. Creative thinking fueled by curiosity. Curiosity fueled by attention. Attention fueled by discipline. And that discipline must overcome one of the most powerful forces in the modern world: distraction. Because today's environment constantly pulls attention away from meaningful creation. Notifications, endless entertainment, constant noise competing for your focus. And focus is the birthplace of value. Without focus, creativity weakens. Without creativity, innovation disappears. Without innovation, value creation slows. This is why many successful builders protect their attention fiercely. They guard it like a financial asset. Because in many ways, attention is the first investment you ever make. Where you place it determines what you build, what you learn, what you create, and ultimately, what you earn. Which leads us to the next piece of the wealth formula: the discipline of attention. Why controlling your focus may be the most underrated financial skill in the modern world, and why those who master their attention often build extraordinary results while others remain trapped in distraction. Because your attention is not just where your mind goes, it is where your future begins. Chapter 13, The Discipline of Attention. There is a silent war happening every day, not in markets, not in boardrooms, not in governments, but inside the human mind, a war for attention. Because attention is the gateway to everything. What you focus on determines what you learn. What you learn determines what you understand. What you understand determines what you build. And what you build determines your future. But modern life is designed to scatter attention. Every notification competes for your focus. Every platform competes for your time. Every headline tries to pull your curiosity into another direction. Endless streams of information, entertainment, and distraction. And while these distractions seem harmless, they quietly consume the most valuable resource you possess: your mental energy. Energy that could have been used to build ideas. Energy that could have been used to learn systems. Energy that could have been used to design your future. But when attention becomes fragmented, creativity disappears. And without creativity, value creation becomes difficult. This is why many wealthy individuals treat attention like a scarce asset. They guard it carefully. They design their environments to reduce distraction. They choose deliberately what deserves their focus, because they understand something powerful. Where attention goes, progress grows. Imagine two individuals living in the same world. Both have access to the same information. Both have access to the same technology. Both have the same number of hours in the day. The first person spends hours reacting to notifications, scrolling endlessly, consuming content without intention. The second person protects their focus. They dedicate time to learning, time to building, time to thinking deeply. One life becomes reactive. The other becomes intentional. And over time, those small differences compound dramatically. Because focused attention leads to insight. Insight leads to strategy. Strategy leads to systems. And systems produce wealth. Now consider something fascinating. Many of the greatest ideas in history were born in moments of deep focus. Not distraction, not chaos, but concentrated thinking. The mind working uninterrupted long enough to connect ideas, to see patterns, to imagine possibilities. But deep focus has become rare. because modern culture celebrates constant stimulation, constant updates, constant engagement. And while that environment can be entertaining, it is not ideal for building extraordinary outcomes. Builders require silence, space, clarity. They need moments where the mind can explore ideas without interruption, where creativity can stretch, where strategies can emerge. And this is why many successful individuals design daily routines that protect their mental clarity. Reading, reflection, exercise, meditation, long walks, activities that calm the mind and strengthen focus. Because a calm mind makes better decisions. A focused mind identifies opportunities faster, and a disciplined mind executes consistently. Now, imagine applying this principle to your financial life. Instead of reacting constantly to the noise of the world, you dedicate focused time to learning about money, studying investments, understanding systems, building ideas. Gradually, your financial awareness deepens. Patterns become visible. Opportunities become clearer. Confidence begins replacing confusion, and with confidence comes action. But attention alone does not create wealth. It must lead to something deeper. Strategy. Because wealth is not built through random actions. It is built through deliberate design. A plan, a direction, a long-term vision guiding daily decisions. Without strategy, effort becomes scattered. But with strategy, even small actions accumulate into powerful results. In the next chapter, we explore the transition from reaction to design. Why wealthy thinkers treat their lives like architects treat blueprints. Why they plan systems years in advance. And why the ability to think strategically about your future may be one of the most powerful skills in the wealth formula. Because once you begin designing your life intentionally, money stops being something you chase and becomes something you engineer. Chapter 14. From Reaction to Design. Most people drift through their financial lives. They react to circumstances as they appear. A bill arrives, they pay it. A paycheck arrives, they spend it. An opportunity appears, they hesitate. Life becomes a series of reactions. Small decisions made moment by moment. And while this may feel normal, there is a hidden cost to living reactively. Because reacting means someone else is setting the direction. Your employer sets your income ceiling. The market sets your opportunities. Circumstances dictate your choices. But the wealth formula begins working the moment you stop reacting and start designing. Designing your life the way an architect designs a building. Before construction begins, the architect does not randomly place walls and windows. They create a blueprint. They imagine the structure. They think about the future of the building, how it will function, how it will grow, how it will serve the people inside it. Wealth builders treat their financial lives exactly the same way. They do not simply work and hope things improve. They design systems that will carry them forward. They ask strategic questions. Where do I want my life to be in 10 years? What assets could support that life? What systems could create financial stability? What skills must I develop? These questions transform the way decisions are made. Because once you have a blueprint, every action begins moving toward a clear destination. Without a blueprint, life becomes scattered. One decision today, another tomorrow. No clear connection between them. But when a strategy exists, small actions suddenly gain direction. Saving becomes intentional. Investing becomes purposeful. Learning becomes focused. Now imagine your financial life as a long journey across an ocean. Many people drift wherever the waves carry them. They adjust sails only when storms appear. But architects of wealth operate differently. They chart a course. They study the weather. They prepare the ship. They move intentionally toward a destination. Storms still appear. Markets still fluctuate. Unexpected events still happen. But strategy keeps them moving forward. And that is the power of design. Design gives direction. Direction creates momentum. Momentum creates results. Now here is something important. Designing your financial life does not require perfection. It simply requires clarity. Clarity about your priorities, clarity about your values, clarity about what kind of life you truly want to build. Because money is not the ultimate goal. Money is a tool that allows you to shape your time, your freedom, your choices. But tools are powerful only when guided by intention. Without intention, money disappears quickly. With intention, money becomes a powerful builder. Now think about your future, not tomorrow, not next month, but 10 or 20 years from now. Where would you like to be? What kind of freedom would you like to experience? What kind of impact would you like to create? These questions are not fantasies. They are the starting points of design. Because every powerful system begins with a clear vision. But vision alone is not enough. It must be supported by discipline. Discipline to invest consistently. Discipline to learn continuously. Discipline to avoid distractions that derail progress. Discipline to keep building even when results are slow. And this discipline is where many people struggle, because the early stages of building wealth can feel quiet, invisible, months of effort with little visible change. But beneath the surface, foundations are forming, skills improving, systems stabilizing, investments growing slowly, and then one day, something remarkable happens. Momentum appears. The systems begin producing. The investments begin compounding. The vision begins turning into reality. This is the moment when the wealth formula reveals its power, because what once required effort begins generating results automatically. Now imagine building multiple systems like this over time. Investments producing returns, businesses producing income, ideas producing influence, each system reinforcing the others. This is how ordinary beginnings transform into extraordinary outcomes. But there is still another layer to the wealth formula, a layer that many people overlook completely. Because even the most powerful systems require something to grow. Multipliers. Multipliers accelerate growth. They amplify effort. They turn small opportunities into massive outcomes. And understanding multipliers may be the most exciting step in the entire journey. Because once you learn how to apply them, your progress can expand faster than you ever imagined. That is exactly where we go next. Because the next chapter explores the power of multipliers. Why wealthy individuals rarely rely on effort alone, and how they use networks, systems, technology, and capital to amplify their results exponentially. Because the wealth formula is not about working harder. It is about learning how to multiply what you build. Chapter 15. The power of multipliers. There is a moment in every financial journey when a powerful realization appears. Effort alone will never be enough. You can work harder, you can work longer, you can sacrifice weekends and nights. But eventually, you collide with a wall, the wall of human limitation. 24 hours in a day, finite energy, finite attention. And this is exactly where the wealth formula introduces something extraordinary: multipliers. Multipliers take your effort and expand its impact far beyond what you could accomplish alone. They turn a single action into thousands of results. They transform small beginnings into exponential growth. And if you study the greatest fortunes in history, you will notice something remarkable. Very few were built through effort alone. They were built through multiplication. Let's start with the simplest multiplier: people. No individual, no matter how talented, can match the collective strength of a well-aligned team. When multiple minds collaborate, ideas expand. When multiple skills combine, execution accelerates. When multiple perspectives challenge assumptions, solutions become stronger. This is why the most successful entrepreneurs rarely build alone. They build teams. Teams of engineers, designers, marketers, strategists, each person multiplying the output of the others. Suddenly, one person's idea becomes an organization capable of reaching millions. That is the power of human leverage. But people are only one multiplier. Another powerful multiplier is technology. Technology allows one idea to reach the entire planet. A book written once can be read by millions. A video created once can influence generations. A piece of software built once can serve users for decades. Technology turns effort into scale, and scale transforms value into wealth. But there is another multiplier even more powerful than technology: capital. Capital allows opportunities to expand faster. An investment in a business, an investment in real estate, an investment in innovation. When capital is placed into productive systems, those systems begin generating additional capital. And when that capital is reinvested, the multiplication continues. This process is called compounding. Compounding is the quiet engine behind many of the world's largest fortunes. A small investment grows. Then that growth generates additional growth. Then that growth compounds again. And over time, the curve becomes dramatic. But compounding requires patience. It requires discipline. Because the early years rarely look impressive. Progress feels slow. Results feel modest. But beneath the surface, something powerful is happening. The multiplier is gaining momentum, and eventually the curve begins bending upward. What once grew slowly begins accelerating. This is the moment when the wealth formula becomes visible. Now imagine combining multiple multipliers: technology, teams, capital, networks, each one amplifying the others. Suddenly, a small idea can become a global business. A single investment can evolve into a portfolio. A small system can grow into an empire. But here is the key insight. Multipliers work only when directed by clear strategy. Without strategy, leverage can amplify mistakes just as easily as it amplifies success. Which is why the most successful builders think carefully about where to place their effort. They do not chase every opportunity. They search for high-leverage opportunities. Opportunities where a single action can create long-term impact. Opportunities where effort can be multiplied again and again. This is why wealthy thinkers ask questions that many people never consider. Instead of asking, "How much money can I earn today?" they ask, "How can I build something that earns repeatedly?" Instead of asking, "How many hours must I work?" they ask, "What system can I create that works even when I stop?" These questions unlock leverage, and leverage transforms financial growth. But multipliers are not only external tools. There is another multiplier that may be even more powerful: your habits. Because habits multiply behavior over time. A habit of reading compounds knowledge. A habit of saving compounds capital. A habit of building compounds opportunity. Small habits repeated daily become enormous forces over years, just like compounding interest, just like investment growth. And when habits align with the wealth formula, progress becomes almost inevitable. But habits alone cannot protect wealth once it begins to grow, because building wealth and keeping wealth are two different games. Many people earn large amounts of money only to lose it later. Why? Because they never learned how to protect what they built. Protection is the next phase of the wealth formula. Understanding how to preserve wealth, how to shield it from unnecessary risk, how to ensure that growth continues instead of collapsing. And that is where our journey continues next. Because in the next chapter, we explore one of the most overlooked skills in finance: protecting wealth once it begins to appear. Because building wealth is impressive, but protecting it, that is where real mastery begins. Chapter 16. Protecting wealth. Building wealth is exciting. The first investment that grows, the first system that produces income, the first time money arrives without direct effort. These moments feel powerful. But something surprising happens to many people at this stage. They discover that building wealth and protecting wealth are two completely different challenges. Because once money begins to accumulate, new forces appear: inflation, taxes, market volatility, emotional decision-making. Suddenly, wealth becomes something that must be defended, not with fear, but with structure. Now imagine someone who spends years building financial momentum. They invest wisely, they build businesses, they accumulate assets. But they ignore one crucial step: protection. Without protection, wealth can disappear surprisingly quickly. History is filled with examples. Professional athletes who earned millions and lost it all. Entrepreneurs who built companies, then collapsed due to poor financial planning. Lottery winners who experienced temporary riches, only to return to financial struggle. The reason is rarely bad luck. The reason is usually lack of structure, because wealth without structure becomes fragile. Structure is what transforms money into lasting security. So how do wealthy thinkers protect what they build? They follow several powerful principles. First, diversification. Diversification simply means not relying on a single asset. If one investment fails, others continue growing. Real estate, equities, businesses, intellectual property, multiple sources of value working together. Diversification reduces vulnerability. Second, risk awareness. Every investment carries risk, but successful investors measure risk before acting. They ask questions. What could go wrong? What is the worst-case scenario? How much exposure am I comfortable with? Risk awareness prevents emotional decisions. It transforms investing from gambling into strategy. Third, legal and financial structure. Ownership matters. How assets are structured matters. Businesses often operate through entities designed to protect personal assets. Investments are structured carefully. Financial planning becomes intentional, because protection is not about hiding wealth. It is about organizing wealth intelligently. Fourth, long-term thinking. Short-term excitement destroys many fortunes. Trendy investments, speculative opportunities, quick profits that tempt emotional decisions, but long-term thinking creates stability. Wealth builders focus on sustainable growth. They prefer consistent progress over sudden gains, because steady growth compounds. Now imagine wealth as a garden. At first you plant seeds. You nurture them. You wait patiently. Eventually, the garden begins to flourish. But if you stop caring for it, Weeds appear, pests appear, storms damage the plants. Protection is the act of maintaining the garden, watering it, guarding it, ensuring that growth continues year after year. This is exactly how wealth behaves. It requires ongoing awareness, ongoing attention, ongoing discipline. But protection alone does not create financial freedom. Protection preserves wealth. Multiplication expands it, and multiplication requires something powerful. Opportunity awareness, the ability to recognize opportunities before they become obvious. Because the wealthiest individuals often share one unique skill. They see possibilities others overlook. They recognize trends early. They move before the crowd arrives, and those early moves create enormous advantages. But opportunity recognition is not luck. It is the result of curiosity, observation, pattern recognition, and the willingness to explore ideas others ignore. In the next chapter, we explore how the wealthiest thinkers identify opportunity, why they often move differently from the crowd, and how developing an eye for opportunity can transform ordinary moments into extraordinary breakthroughs. Because opportunities rarely appear labeled, they appear disguised as problems. And the people who learn to recognize them often build futures that others once believed were impossible. Chapter 17. The Eye for Opportunity. Opportunity rarely arrives with an announcement. It doesn't knock loudly on the door and say, "Here I am. This will change your life." Most of the time, opportunity appears quietly, disguised, hidden inside problems, wrapped in uncertainty, invisible to people who are not looking carefully. And that is why some individuals move through life surrounded by opportunity, while others walk through the same world and see nothing but obstacles. The difference lies in how they look at the world. Most people see problems. Wealth builders see possibilities. When a system breaks down, most people complain. An opportunity thinker asks, "Why did this break? And how could it be improved?" When a new technology appears, many people dismiss it. An opportunity thinker studies it. Who will benefit from this? What industries will change? What new needs will appear? And that curiosity opens doors. Because every major shift in the world creates waves of opportunity. Industrial revolutions, technological revolutions, economic transitions, every change reshapes the landscape. Some people resist change. Others learn to ride it. Now imagine two individuals living through the same economic transformation. New technologies appear. Industries shift. Consumer habits change. The first person clings to the past. They hope things return to the way they were. The second person studies the shift. They explore new skills. They invest in emerging systems. 10 years later, their worlds look completely different. One struggled against change. The other grew with it. Opportunity awareness requires 3 powerful habits: observation, curiosity, and courage. Observation allows you to notice patterns others miss. Curiosity pushes you to ask deeper questions. Courage allows you to act before certainty appears. Because opportunity rarely feels comfortable. It often appears uncertain, unclear, risky. But those willing to explore it gain first-mover advantages, and first movers often capture enormous value. Think about the early days of the internet. At first, many people dismissed it, a novelty, a temporary trend. But those who saw its potential built platforms, companies, and entire industries. Think about mobile technology, social media, artificial intelligence. Every technological wave began with uncertainty. But within uncertainty lies opportunity. Now here is something important. Opportunity does not only appear in global trends, it appears in everyday life. Local businesses, community needs, operational inefficiencies, services that could be improved, products that could be redesigned. Every unsolved problem contains a potential solution, and every solution contains potential value. The key is training your mind to look for these openings. Instead of asking, "What can I do today?" start asking, "What problems exist around me? What could be improved? What do people struggle with?" These questions transform your perspective. The world stops looking like a collection of obstacles and begins looking like a landscape of possibilities. But opportunity recognition alone is not enough, because opportunities must be executed. Ideas without action remain imagination. Execution requires discipline, planning, consistency, and the willingness to learn through trial and error. This is why many successful builders treat ideas like experiments, not final answers. Experiments. They test, they adjust, they refine, and over time, experiments evolve into systems. Systems evolve into assets. Assets evolve into wealth. But there is another principle that strengthens opportunity recognition: probability thinking. Because in the real world, certainty rarely exists. No opportunity comes with guarantees. Instead, successful thinkers evaluate probabilities. What are the chances this works? What are the risks? What are the potential rewards? They understand something crucial. Not every attempt will succeed. But success does not require perfection. It requires being right often enough. If you take 10 thoughtful opportunities and 3 succeed significantly, those 3 may transform your entire financial life. This is why wealthy thinkers are not paralyzed by the fear of mistakes. They expect them, they plan for them, and they treat each attempt as another step forward. Because the real danger is not failure. The real danger is never trying. Opportunity is always moving, always evolving, always appearing in new forms. But only those who are curious enough to notice it and brave enough to pursue it ever capture its rewards. Now imagine standing at a crossroads. Behind you lies the old path, the path of financial reaction. Work, spend, repeat, hope things improve. Ahead of you lies a different path, the path of intentional design. Learn, build, invest, multiply, protect, grow. Neither path is easy, but only one leads to freedom. And freedom is the true destination of the wealth formula. Freedom to control your time. Freedom to choose your work. Freedom to support the people and causes you care about. Freedom to wake up each day knowing your life belongs to you. But freedom does not appear suddenly. It is built one decision at a time, one habit at a time, one investment at a time. And this process begins with something simple: awareness. The awareness that the rules of wealth exist. The awareness that the system can be learned. The awareness that your future can be designed. Now here is the most important truth of this entire audiobook. You do not need to be born wealthy to build wealth. You do not need perfect timing. You do not need extraordinary luck. What you need is understanding. Understanding of how money works. Understanding of how systems grow. Understanding of how value attracts opportunity. And once you possess that understanding, everything changes. Because knowledge becomes leverage, and leverage multiplies effort. Now imagine your life 10 years from today, not by accident, but by design. Imagine the systems you could build, the investments you could grow, the skills you could develop, the opportunities you could create. 10 years of intentional action can transform a life completely. Because the wealth formula is not about dramatic moments. It is about consistent progress, small steps taken repeatedly, disciplined decisions made over time. And those small steps compound, just like investments, just like knowledge, just like habits. Eventually, they transform your entire trajectory. But remember something important. Wealth is not the final goal. Wealth is the tool that allows you to build the life you truly want. A life filled with purpose, a life filled with contribution, a life where your time and energy are directed toward what matters most. And that is the real promise of the wealth formula. Not simply becoming rich, but becoming unstoppable. Unstoppable in growth, unstoppable in learning, unstoppable in building a future that once seemed impossible. And the journey begins the moment you decide to take the first step. If something in this audiobook resonated with you, pause for a moment. Ask yourself one simple question. What is the first step I will take today? Maybe it's learning about investing. Maybe it's building your first asset. Maybe it's changing the way you think about money. Whatever that step is, take it. Because the wealth formula is not something you wait for. It is something you start living. And once you do, your future will never look the same again.